So we've tossed a few of these words around already. A depression, a storm, a hurricane. This is an order of progression. All right, if everything we say happens, then those thunderstorms should move up to what we call a tropical depression. If the tropical depression is continually fed and nurtured, it will grow into a tropical storm. And if all goes well and it just gets super crazy in there, it gets bumped up to a hurricane. And again, this is where that 74 miles per hour comes in. I don't want to say there's very little difference between a tropical storm and a hurricane, but that's the clincher. And in all honesty, you're not going to care if this storm hits you with 75 mile per hour winds or 73 mile per hour winds. You're not going to know the difference. It's going to be a big, freaking, scary storm. But for the folks in charge, that's their delineator, okay? We're going to show you some examples of what this looks like through some pretty ancient radar. I chuckle to myself every semester that, good God, I can't believe radar used to be that bad. And this is only from the 90s. And I really ought to update it. Towards the end, there's some iPhone screenshots that are much better, but still, I don't know, maybe I just leave this stuff in here for... Look at that. Isn't that some high quality resolution there? So, 1995, we've got a tropical storm in the upper left-hand corner, a couple hurricanes, middle, lower right-ish, tropical depression right there in the middle. Tropical depression doesn't look like anything, and it shouldn't. All right, I'm guessing once you get 3, 4, 5 thunderstorms together, you're at a tropical depression. You just got to get a low forming. That's what the depression is implying. Okay. But what we're looking for, and in all honesty, that tropical storm in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the curvature way better than you can in either the hurricanes they're pointing to. I'm guessing the hurricane on the way right is, again, lost to resolution, but I'm guessing that's really tightly formed, and there's just a nice pretty eye in the center there and everything. But when we look at what I keep mentioning, rain bands, that's these streamers coming out. That tropical storm in the upper left is just about textbook. Okay, as soon as that thing gets a little faster, it's going to be a hurricane. And in fact, I think Tropical Storm Jerry did turn into Hurricane Jerry. And it's funny too, because that's when Seinfeld was still kind of really popular. The names, we'll talk about the naming structure. So, tropical depression. Please, you're not going to be writing out these definitions, okay? So don't worry about taking it to that level. But get the general gist. Keep in your mind the bigger picture here. So the group of thunderstorms have come together, held together, and there is, all right, some sustained wind speeds they're looking for. Again, I'm not going to ask you to quote this, so I'm jumping ahead to the next slide because we're much more interested in the storms. So we get that low showing up. We get sustained winds right around high 20s to low 30s, I think it was. And circulation begins. I've not done enough, in all honesty, poking around into tropical depressions. I imagine if one were to pass over you, it would be very similar to what we experienced earlier this week, I think it was. We just had a couple days of gray and continual rain, but again with some winds. We were missing the winds, but just remember how it rained for like 2 days straight. I think that's probably what the depression would be like if you were to experience one. But with some decent winds thrown in. So you could see a bit of an implication here of rotation. It's starting to curve. As the local weathermen say, you know, looking for that comma in the radar, and there it is. But the winds aren't there yet. No real parts are defined. Just getting started. All right. Tropical storms, these are bothersome. You're looking at anywhere from 40 to 70 miles per hour with the winds. It is fully rotating. And enough so that this is where they attach a name. Okay. This is where they're like, okay, this is serious enough. There's potential chance that it's going to turn into a hurricane. We're going to give it a name. You lose that comma. We're going for the circle. Remember that picture-perfect hurricane that we opened with? It was just like a giant frisbee. Okay? Nice, tight, compact. Going for that shape. Like it says, pretty much everything except the speed. Updated. I don't remember updating this one. So this is a tropical storm. They have a little leeway when they pick names. They have to go alphabetically, but I think they pick names sometimes that people will joke about a little bit. This is far enough away from Elsa's movie, but still many parents still cringe at the mention of her name. So Hurricane Elsa, or Tropical Storm Elsa, my bad. Only 40 miles per hour. But again, if a tropical storm passes over you, 40 mile per hour winds, look at those, the rain. If you know anything about radar, you know this is some good rain. All right. And beautiful formation. Again, this is a very common thing. We try to use the same symbols over and over again. All right, when we're talking about hurricanes and storms and whatnot. All right. We've hit the accelerator and we've bumped it up to 74 degrees. I'm sorry, 74 miles per hour. Again, sustained. Now, don't get me wrong. Once we start talking about categories of hurricanes, if it even inches over for a second when it's in some of the higher ones, boom, they jump on that number. But in calling it a hurricane, you know, we do wait for these winds to stick at 74 for at least a little while. And definitely the rotation is present. So again, swirling in, got your rain bands. And which way is my mouse going? Counterclockwise, okay. See that beautiful little donut right there in the center? Okay, that, again, picture perfect. I don't know why this one, oh wait, this is a video. Oh. No, I have no idea where it is. Well, it was a video. It was probably a compilation of radar images that, it's a GIF, so it's probably a compilation of radar images that maybe just made a track across here, but that would have been fun to... I should be able to search such a thing, right? Nice. Okay, well, I like this one. Was this Danny? Let's get Hurricane Danny. Oh. Not quite so simple. I wonder if I could, anybody know, can you embed into PowerPoint? I know I could embed into Blackboard. Let's add a slide here. I don't think it's going to be that simple. Ah, crap. That's all it ever was. Okay, good. Nope, it's not going to do anything with the code. I am beyond my realm here. Let's just go with share. I know how to share. Oh, sometimes I feel like I'm 1,000 years old. Oh, I gotta put it in myself. Okay. So let's see if we could actually get Danny to go full screen here for a minute. And we could watch that motion. So again, you see the counterclockwise rotation. What's that hole in the center called? The eye. Excellent. All right. So we see the eye tracking. And this is all stuff they could more or less predict because it's a little more complicated than this. But basically that hurricane is buffered by whatever fronts are on either side of it. Whatever kind of weather is to the southwest in this case, whatever kind of weather is to the northeast in this case. All right, it's sort of channeling this hurricane in a particular direction, and that's how they can track these. Sometimes they're wrong, all right, because it's not, as I said, quite that simple. I've actually noticed, just because I pay attention to this stuff, it's sort of a hobby, for lack of a better word, that when these things get anywhere near us, it starts to pull stuff down from Canada. It's kind of like a black hole. It's got that much power that it is pulling stuff down. I'm not 100% sure. It's just observational at this point. But so as much as, like I said, these are affected by the air around them, they definitely affect the air around them as well. So, anywho, so there's that. Where were we? PowerPoint. There's PowerPoint. Nope, that's Firefox again. There's my PowerPoint. All right. So, I keep talking about these picture-perfect hurricanes. Yes, you're going to have to label one on your test. You folks online, it is a little confusing what I'm hearing from your classmates in semesters past. How to do that diagram. I apologize, but label to what you think makes the best sense. So you've got the eye in the center. All right. That donut I pointed out to you a moment ago, that's the eye wall. All right. The eye wall is the most intense bit of the storm. What's the eye known for being? The calm, okay? Calmest part. So right before the calm of the storm, you've got the worst part. And then all that spiraling around we call the rain bands. Sometimes you'll see storm bands, a handful of different words for it, but most folks, and myself, we go with rain bands. So here's the eye. Again, it's usually the most recognizable feature. It's that dark spot in there. And you literally can, it's just like a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube. It's literally just a clear chute all the way up. You look up, you see blue skies. Okay. The rain stops, everything stops. And anybody been through a hurricane? Live somewhere else, obviously. Okay, and you folks at home, if you raised your hand just now, email me about it. Let me know. I've not. Like I said, I've been studying them for a long time. One of the huge hazards, for lack of a better word, is when this eye passes over you, you are so tempted to go check on things. Okay, it's passed. I know it's the eye. I know it's coming back, but we've got time. You don't know how much time. That's the problem. I know, God forbid, you got to go look for your cat or your dog, or you want to see if your car's still there, or your lawn furniture, whatever. But don't ever go too far. Okay, when the eye's over you, because you don't know how long that break is going to last. Think of this as an axle. This is that low pressure, okay? We've been talking all morning about the forming around a low and this air coming in and swirling around a low pressure. This eye is the, not personification because it's not a person, but it is the low, all right? And everything rotates around it. So that donut, I actually had a much better picture in some of the other hurricanes, but you see this thick spot right here. That's the eye wall, and that is the most intense portion of the storm. The most damaging winds, the worst rain. We don't have a whole lot of mad scientists left in the world, but some of these storm chasers are about the closest we're going to get. And I know it's better for their lives, but it's kind of sad in a way that we've got such amazing drones these days, because now they're just going to drop a drone down in the middle of these things. And, it's going to get great footage, don't get me wrong, and we could probably even be a little more reckless. But with them, because there's no potential for human lives to be at stake. But these folks that would drop down in the center of hurricanes and studies, let alone take pictures for us, that's some gutsy stuff. You can see the eye wall. It's kind of hard to get perspective here. If this were IMAX, it might be a little better. But that is a serious bow, like the side of a soup bowl kind of thing that you're looking into there. And that eye wall, that's that donut. So they've dropped down into that eye, into that low pressure center, which I think plays heck when you're flying as well, when you change pressures so greatly. So they got to, stabilize themselves in that low, and then take their photography. Lastly, we have the rain bands. All right, and those are really just all of the storm that's still being dragged into the hurricane proper. All right, some of it's always going to be streaming. It's always, never everything's going to get sucked into the middle. It is not a black hole, despite my joking earlier. Okay, it just continually twirls and spins, but it does feed off the environment around it. So you will continually get new rain bands until you run out of water. Once these things hit dry land, they tend to fall apart fairly quick. Again, it depends on their size. And again, that's why these folks in charge of this stuff are worrying. Because the bigger the storm is, you could still have half of it over the ocean, the other half is inland. So you've got areas never before being affected by this. Again, yes, that inland half is going to start to fall apart once it loses its water, but it's still there. It's just not going to grow anymore. So the bigger these things get when they hit, it's that much further inland, and just you'll see some of these images. So the rain bands, as you can imagine, if you're in the outer realm, okay, it's going to just be cruddy and rainy. Not real windy, not real anything. But as you go in, imagine cutting sort of a transect through the storm. It's going to slowly increase. You'll have less breaks in the rain. The weather will get worse until you hit that eye wall where it'll be the worst. Then you hit the eye. It's calm again. And then you go back through in the opposite way. So that's kind of the bummer on top of it all, is that most times you end up experiencing the storm. If the eye passes over you, you end up experiencing the storm twice. Most folks are lucky enough, for lack of a better word, where they just get hit by the rain bands. So, which is a one-time deal. So this is a much better image. Okay, again, you can see the donut right there. And that donut is the eye wall, and that's really thick. That's a lot of mileage right there. You got the eye, not quite so prominent in here. And it's zoomed in nice and tight so you can see. But you have to imagine there's some hellacious rain bands coming off of this thing as well. So I just talked about this. Please don't write its narrative. I just talked about the experience. If you were standing somewhere and the eye was tracking over you, what your experience would be. Slowly increasing rains, winds, okay? And occasional breaks would then disappear. It gets more consistent up to the eye wall where it's the worst. Then calm at the eye. Then right back into the worst of things. And then it starts to slow down again. So that's all this is talking about. Same thing here. All right. Wind speeds increase. We haven't actually maybe said this, so you might want to paraphrase this slide. The wind speeds increase as you go towards the eye. Okay. But the pressure does what? What's in the center? Is it a high or a low? It's a low in the center. So the pressures actually drop as you go in. So wind speeds go up as pressure drops as the hurricane's passing over you. Lifespan. So bounce around in the ocean, it says a couple weeks on here, but really it's limited by where it travels. If it goes up north or way south, the waters are going to cool off. It's going to fizzle out. But as it bounces around like a pinball, in the middle latitudes, it could go on indefinitely. But again, cooler water or land. Again, once you hit land, you've taken almost all of those factors out of the picture. All right, the warmth, the warm water, the humidity. You still have the upper level humidity again because the rain bands are there, but there's nothing feeding it anymore. All right, so we've talked an awful lot about how we get to this point, the process of building up the storm, and now we want to talk about what you hear in the news. You're here, the storm's coming. What kind? How bad is it? What damage can you expect? We're moving on to that aspect. What they use as a rating scale is something called the Saffir-Simpson scale. You don't really hear that on the news. But you'll hear the earthquake one. Those Richter scales. Some people know the word Richter scale. So earthquakes, they use the name. With hurricanes, they just say category this or category that. But it is in the Saffir-Simpson scale. Ranges from 1 to 5. 1 the least, 5 the worst. There was some talk a few years back about making a 6. Most folks, myself included, feel that there's really no point in that, because if you actually get what 5 is, there isn't anything worse than that. So
probably, hopefully, they won't change it. Everything's sensationalized anymore, so who knows? They'll come up with 5+ or something. Who knows? So Cat 1. Oh, hold on one second. That reminds me. Oh, good, it is in here. I put a little levity in at some point. So Category 1 or Cat 1, as they say, 74 to 95. So even when a Category 1 hits you, look at 95 mile per hour winds. Now, I know many of you will approximate 70 in your car, and in the summer your windows are down, your hands out, and I like to do the hand surfy thing where you kind of go up and down and catch your hand and all that. And that's pretty strong. But 95% of your, 98% of your body is surrounded by car. It is not the same feeling. All right, imagine if your entire body, if you turned just a little bit, you might, whoa, totally go off your feet. All right, it's strong. 95 mile per hour winds are strong. Hopefully you're not driving 95. Storm surge. What the heck is storm surge? Well, so we're going to start by explaining what it isn't, but you understand that part better. You guys know high tide and low tide, right? Even if you haven't been to the beach, you know there's a thing called high tide and low tide. So tide's usually here. High tide, it's going to be 5 feet more towards inland. Your blanket might have got wet. Your lawn chair floated away, whatever. Low tide, you could walk out farther. All right. That's not what storm surge is. Storm surge isn't 5 feet past, what are we in here? 4 to 5 feet, yeah. So storm surge in this case is not 4 to 5 feet past high tide. What it is 4 to 5 feet higher. Like you standing on the beach and your ankles are wet or your ankles are dry, 4 to 5 feet more of water over you. That's what storm surge is. And that's why even these Category 1s, like the Category 1 that hit Manhattan, I don't remember the date, but you guys were probably too young to care. But in my memory, it was fairly recent. You ever been to the coast, for lack of a better word, of Manhattan? It ain't that far down, especially depending where you are on the island. Manhattan is damn near sea level. So 4 to 5 feet of water coming in is a huge, especially when you have subways, is a huge difference. Now think back if you've been lucky enough to go to the beach. You're standing on the beach and you're looking at the water. Now turn around and look inland. All right. Let's say you're 5 feet tall. You're a little higher than 5 feet tall, most of you. Some of you are short like I am. You look at it and say, okay, my head all the way in, how far is that going to go? So it's not just 5 feet horizontal. It's as long as the land will let it. Yet another reason that they need to let the sand dunes repopulate on the beaches, because they serve as nice buffers against stuff like this. But you look at some of these condos, if you go to condo land on vacation, okay, it's flat beach right up to the condo, right up to the town strip. That 4 to 5 feet could, there's a lot of stuff in the way, it'll probably stop it, but could, in theory, before you have 5 feet of elevation change, goes a long way. I don't want to belabor the point. I'm just trying to get across. It's vertical water change. It's swell, for lack of a better word. Cat 2, 96 to 110. I'm not going to hold you to these numbers, okay? Don't worry about the wind speeds in the categories. Storm surge is up to 8 feet. This is when we start to see things breaking, okay? One of the things that comes up in geology is evolution. One of the things people forget about evolution is this isn't just about people. Evolution also puts the proper vegetation in the proper places. Cactus in the desert, you don't see giant, trees that need all kinds of water and stuff like that. That kind of thinking. Well, watching some hurricane footage not too horribly long ago and watching palm trees, those are exactly where they need to be. They bend practically all the way down to the ground. Those long, spindly leaves, just kind of like big red wiggly guy. I don't know what your family calls them. But you know those blow-up things they put in front of car dealers? We always call them big red wiggly guy or big blue wiggly guy, whatever. That palm tree bends all the way down and just flaps in the breeze. And as soon as it's gone, boing, springs right back up. Probably didn't break, maybe lost one leaf or two. That's evolution, okay? That's where it plant exactly it needs to be. It's where it can thrive. It's in its niche. All those words you learned way back when. But you go and you plant an oak tree in your front yard, yeah, it's going to snap in half pretty easily. So when they see trees breaking down, I wanted to just riff off of that for a second. Cat 3. Cat 3 is when we start to worry. Most folks. 111 to 130. Storm surge is over 10 feet. I joke about the folks in Florida. Bless their heart. They're hardy folk. And these things that they insist on hunkering down for. All right, stage 3 is where even they start to get a little, all right, maybe I better go buy another 6-pack. Storm category 3 is not good. Cat 4, up to 155 miles per hour, almost 20 feet of swell. So now imagine yourself back on that beach, look inland. You're up to the second floor on most hotels at this point. Approaching the second floor. You ever wonder, you're again at the beach and you're walking through some of the neighborhoods, you see these houses up on posts. That's why. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, boy, you'll be happy you're up in the air. Yeah, your car floated away, but thank goodness everything else is still there. Cat 5. Over 155 miles per hour. Over 20 feet of storm surge. And I talked with you, I said there's little point in a category 6. This is why. 155 miles per hour, it's just stuff, even those palm trees, you know, they're not going to withstand that. This is devastation. And, you know, what is beyond devastation, you know, plus extra devastation. There's no reason to make a 6. We've had some scary numbers. We've been over 155. All right, and that's what's prompted these conversations. I think we've been over 155. It's just, there's little point, because if you get hit with a 5, nothing left. It's like I said, a little bit of levity. That always makes me giggle. I don't watch cat videos, but I do like cat memes. I like Cat 5. That's the funniest.